Chapter 1: The First Green. How can humanity survive forever without ever returning to Earth? Every meal eventually comes to an end. Every harvest is eventually consumed. So how could a single spacecraft possibly feed generation after generation as it journeys between the stars? You are aboard the Starship Genesis, the first vessel ever built to carry humanity beyond the solar system. Its mission is unlike any in human history. The journey ahead will last far longer than a single lifetime. Fortunately, the people aboard Genesis did not bring enough food for the voyage. They brought something far more important: the ability to grow it forever. The corridors of Genesis have become familiar over the past weeks. Clean lines of steel, soft white lighting, the quiet rhythm of ventilation systems, moving recycled air through every deck. It is the sound of a ship that never truly sleeps. As you continue walking deeper into Genesis, something begins to change. The mechanical hum slowly fades. Another sound takes its place: the gentle movement of flowing water, small circulation pumps working without pause, a faint rustling unlike anything else aboard the ship. Leaves. The air feels different here. Warmer, softer, almost alive. The pressure door ahead slides open. Warm light spills into the corridor. Before you stretches one of the most remarkable places ever built by humanity. An entire garden. Rows upon rows of vibrant green plants extend into the distance beneath carefully balanced grow lights. Lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, fresh herbs, strawberries. Every plant grows in neat channels where nutrient-rich water slowly flows beneath its roots. Tiny droplets glisten on broad green leaves. For just a moment, it is easy to forget there is no Earth outside these walls. The endless darkness beyond Genesis feels impossibly far away. Long before Genesis ever departed, botanists, agricultural scientists, and geneticists spent decades preparing for this journey. They carefully selected thousands of seed varieties from every corner of Earth. Vegetables, grains, legumes, fruit-bearing plants, herbs, medicinal plants, even flowers that may one day support pollinating insects on distant worlds. Together, they formed a living library of Earth's agriculture. Only a small fraction of those seeds are growing today. Most remain safely preserved inside climate-controlled seed vaults aboard Genesis, protected from moisture, protected from light, protected from time itself, waiting patiently for future harvests, future decades, future generations. Every growing season, part of each crop is harvested to feed the crew. Another portion is left to mature naturally, producing fresh seeds for the next planting. Those seeds replenish the ship's stores, year after year, generation after generation. The gardens sustain the people. The seed vaults preserve Earth's extraordinary biodiversity. Together, they ensure that no single harvest determines humanity's future. Children born aboard Genesis may one day harvest vegetables descended from seeds planted on Earth before they were ever born. Their grandchildren may do the same. Each generation inheriting not only food, but the knowledge and responsibility to grow the next. Standing here among the quiet gardens, surrounded by flowing water and living green leaves, it becomes clear that this place is far more than a farm. It is humanity's promise to the future. Because while Genesis left Earth behind, it carried with it everything needed to let Earth live on among the stars. As you begin walking slowly between the endless rows of growing plants, another question quietly begins to form. If there is no soil anywhere aboard Genesis, how do all of these plants continue to thrive? That answer begins just ahead. Chapter 2, Farming Without Soil. If you were to gently lift one of these plants from its growing channel, you would discover something surprising. There is no soil, no rich black earth, no fields, no gardens in the way humanity knew them for thousands of years. Instead, the roots hang freely in gently flowing water that has been carefully mixed with every mineral the plant needs to survive: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and dozens of other nutrients in precisely measured amounts. For most of human history, people believed plants grew because of the soil beneath them. But the truth is, plants do not actually need soil. They need what the soil provides: water, minerals, oxygen, support for their roots. On Earth, soil performs that task naturally. Aboard Genesis, engineering performs it instead. Each growing channel slowly circulates nutrient-rich water beneath the plants. Powerful but efficient pumps keep the solution moving day and night. As the water flows past each root, the plants absorb only the nutrients they require. Nothing more, nothing less. The remaining water continues through an intricate network of pipes where it is continuously filtered, monitored, and enriched before beginning the journey once again. Almost nothing is wasted. Every drop matters. On a ship traveling between the stars, water is far too valuable to lose. Sensors constantly monitor the chemistry of every growing channel. If nitrogen begins to fall, the system quietly restores the balance. If acidity changes, tiny adjustments are made automatically, long before the crew could ever notice a problem. The gardens have already begun correcting it. The result is an environment more stable than almost any farm on Earth. The plants never experience drought. They never endure floods. They never face unexpected frosts or scorching heat. Every hour of every day, they receive exactly what they need to grow. Not because nature has been replaced, but because humanity has learned to recreate nature inside the walls of Genesis. Soft white lights suspended above the gardens complete the illusion. Although sunlight disappeared long ago, these carefully engineered lamps provide the exact wavelengths plants use for photosynthesis. Every sunrise, every afternoon, every evening is recreated aboard the ship, not according to the clocks of Earth, but according to the needs of the crops themselves. Some plants thrive with longer days. Others require shorter periods of light before they flower or produce fruit. The gardens quietly adjust to each species, allowing thousands of varieties from Earth to flourish together beneath an artificial sky. As you continue walking between the endless rows of green, it becomes increasingly difficult to remember that beyond these walls, there is only the silent darkness of interstellar space. The gardens do not simply feed the people aboard Genesis, they remind them of home. Yet these plants are doing something even more remarkable than producing food. With every leaf, every root, and every breath, they are helping keep the entire ship alive. That story begins in the next chapter. Chapter 3, The Ship Breathes. As you continue your quiet walk through the gardens, it becomes easy to think of these plants as little more than a source of food. Fresh lettuce, ripening tomatoes, sweet strawberries waiting to be harvested. But every leaf surrounding you is performing another task. one far more important. These gardens are helping keep everyone aboard Genesis alive. Every member of the crew breathes the same precious air. With every breath, oxygen enters the body. Carbon dioxide leaves it behind. On Earth, that carbon dioxide simply mixes into an atmosphere shared by forests, oceans, and billions of other living things. But Genesis carries no atmosphere beyond its hull. The air inside the ship is all there is. Nothing can be wasted. Nothing can simply drift away into space. Fortunately, plants have been quietly solving this problem for hundreds of millions of years. Using energy from carefully tuned grow lights, every green leaf performs a remarkable process known as photosynthesis. The plants absorb carbon dioxide released by the crew. They combine it with water. Using light as their source of energy, they create sugars that allow them to grow. As a byproduct, they release oxygen, the very oxygen that the crew will breathe once again. It is one of nature's oldest partnerships. Humans breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants do precisely the opposite. Together, they create a cycle that has sustained life on Earth for countless ages. Aboard Genesis, that same partnership has simply been brought indoors. Of course, the gardens cannot supply all of the ship's oxygen on their own. Genesis also carries sophisticated life support systems that recycle air, remove excess carbon dioxide, recover water from the atmosphere, and constantly monitor the health of every compartment. The plants are partners in that system, not its only safeguard. Engineers learned long ago that survival in deep space should never depend upon a single piece of equipment. Every critical system aboard Genesis has another ready to take its place. Redundancy is one of the quiet principles upon which the entire ship was built. The gardens contribute in another way as well. As water slowly evaporates from their leaves, it enters the air as invisible moisture. Environmental systems recover much of that humidity, purify it, and return it to the ship's water reserves. Very little is ever lost. The same water may nourish a tomato plant today, become drinking water tomorrow, and return to the gardens again only days later. Over time, you begin to see Genesis differently. It is no longer simply a spacecraft. It behaves more like a living ecosystem. Water moves continuously. Air circulates without rest. Plants grow. People breathe. Every system quietly supporting every other. Nothing exists in isolation. Standing among the gardens, surrounded by thousands of living plants, it becomes clear that humanity did not merely build a machine capable of crossing the stars. It built a small piece of Earth, one carefully balanced ecosystem, traveling silently through the darkness between suns. Yet even this remarkable garden depends upon something that can never be manufactured aboard Genesis: the energy that keeps every light shining, every pump turning, and every plant alive. That journey begins in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Every drop returns. The gardens around you appear effortless. Water quietly flows beneath every row of plants. Leaves glisten with tiny droplets. Everything feels abundant. Yet one question remains: where does all of this water come from? After all, Genesis left Earth many years ago. There are no rivers between the stars, no lakes, no clouds drifting beyond the ship, no rain waiting to replenish its reserves. Every drop of water aboard Genesis is part of a carefully protected cycle. The ship does not search for new water. It continually reuses the water it already has. Long before the first crew boarded Genesis, engineers understood one simple truth. A spacecraft carrying generations of people could never survive by consuming its resources only once. Everything had to become part of a closed-loop system. The water nourishing these plants today may have followed an extraordinary journey. Only days ago, it may have been drinking water served in the dining hall. Before that, it may have drifted through the air as invisible humidity. Weeks earlier, it may have flowed through these very gardens, nourishing a row of tomatoes, before being recovered once again. Almost nothing is ever discarded. Moisture released from the leaves is captured by the ship's environmental systems. Water vapor from the air is condensed and purified. Water used throughout the ship is carefully treated through multiple stages of filtration. Tiny particles are removed. Dissolved impurities are separated. Microorganisms are eliminated. Before returning to the crew or the gardens, every drop is tested to ensure it meets the highest standards of purity. In many ways, the water aboard Genesis becomes cleaner with each cycle. On Earth, it is easy to overlook water. A faucet opens, a river flows, rain eventually falls again. But aboard Genesis, every single drop is known, measured, protected. Nothing is taken for granted. Even the gardens are designed to waste as little water as possible. Because the roots receive water directly, very little is lost to evaporation. Compared with traditional farming on Earth, hydroponic systems can produce the same crops while using only a small fraction of the water. For a spacecraft crossing the vast distances between stars, that efficiency is not simply an advantage, it is essential. As you continue walking between the rows of green, the quiet sound of flowing water begins to feel different. It is no longer just the sound of irrigation. It is the sound of one of humanity's most precious resources, completing another journey around the ship. The same water, again and again, year after year, generation after generation. Nothing aboard Genesis exists on its own. The water sustains the plants. The plants help sustain the crew. The crew carefully maintains the systems that sustain them all. It is a cycle without a beginning or an end. A small, living world carried safely through the darkness of interstellar space. Yet even perfect recycling cannot create something from nothing. Every light above these gardens, every circulation pump, every environmental system depends upon one final resource: energy. And how Genesis produces enough power to keep this tiny world alive is the story of our next chapter. Chapter 5, Powered by the Stars. The gardens around you feel peaceful. Water flows quietly beneath every row of plants. Grow lights shine with steady precision. Fresh air moves gently between the leaves. It is easy to forget that none of it happens naturally. Every drop of water, every beam of light, every carefully balanced temperature depends upon a constant supply of energy. Without it, the gardens would slowly fall silent. The pumps would stop circulating water. The lights would fade. The carefully controlled environment that keeps these plants alive would begin to disappear. A garden aboard Genesis is not sustained by sunshine. It is sustained by engineering. Long before the ship left Earth, its designers understood that energy would become the foundation of everything aboard, not only for propulsion, but for life itself. The lights above these plants imitate the sun. The pumps replace rivers. The environmental systems recreate Earth's atmosphere. None of it exists without electricity. Unlike spacecraft traveling within our solar system, Genesis cannot depend on solar panels alone. As the ship ventured farther from the sun, sunlight became weaker and weaker. By the time Genesis crossed into interstellar space, the sun had become little more than another bright star. Its light was no longer powerful enough to sustain the ship. Instead, Genesis carries its own power source. Deep within the vessel, far from the living quarters, compact nuclear reactors quietly produce the electricity needed to keep the ship alive. These reactors do not propel the ship directly. Their purpose is far simpler: to provide reliable power every hour of every day, year after year, generation after generation. Modern nuclear reactors require surprisingly little fuel compared with the enormous amount of energy they produce. Carefully managed over decades, they provide the dependable foundation that a journey like this demands. Nothing aboard Genesis depends upon a single reactor alone. Several independent power systems share the responsibility. If one must be shut down for maintenance, the others continue supplying the ship without interruption. Redundancy once again becomes the quiet guardian of survival. Even the heat produced by the reactors rarely goes to waste. Some of it helps warm the ship. Some supports industrial systems. Engineers have long understood that the most efficient spacecraft are those that waste as little energy as possible. Standing among the gardens, it becomes clear that every tomato, every strawberry, every green leaf reaching toward the lights exists because of a chain of remarkable technologies working together. Electricity becomes light. Light becomes photosynthesis. Photosynthesis becomes food. Food becomes people. And people continue humanity's journey toward the stars. The gardens are often described as the heart of Genesis, but perhaps that is only partly true, because every heart depends upon another organ, quietly working in the background. For Genesis, that unseen heartbeat is its power system, silent, reliable, always there. As you leave the gardens behind, one final thought begins to emerge. These plants are more than a source of food, more than part of the life support system. For the people born aboard Genesis, they are the closest thing they have ever known to home. And that is where our journey concludes. Chapter 6. A living piece of Earth. As you slowly make your way back through the gardens, it becomes easier to understand why this place is so cherished aboard Genesis. It is not simply where food is grown. It is where Earth continues to live. For thousands of years, humanity depended upon a planet so generous that many of its greatest gifts went unnoticed. Fresh air, flowing water, fertile soil, changing seasons. The quiet certainty that another harvest would always come. Only after leaving Earth did people truly begin to understand how extraordinary those gifts had always been. Nothing aboard Genesis happens by chance. Every leaf has been carefully planted. Every liter of water carefully recovered. Every seed thoughtfully preserved. Every harvest patiently planned. Together, they recreate something that once seemed impossible. A small, self-sustaining world. As the years pass, these gardens continue to change. Some plants produce seeds that will supply future harvests. Others are carefully crossbred by the ship's botanists, gradually selecting varieties better suited to life aboard Genesis. Generation after generation, the gardens quietly adapt alongside the people who care for them. One day, children born aboard this ship may walk these same pathways without ever realizing how remarkable this place truly is. To them, fresh herbs, ripening tomatoes, the scent of growing plants, the gentle sound of flowing water, these things will simply feel normal, just as forests and fields once felt normal to the people of Earth. Perhaps that is humanity's greatest talent, not merely surviving in unfamiliar places, but learning to call them home. As you pause for one last look across the endless rows of green, it becomes difficult to think of Genesis as only a spacecraft. It has become something else, a living ecosystem, a tiny world, carefully balanced, every person depending upon the plants, every plant depending upon the people, each quietly protecting the other. And somewhere inside these gardens, hidden within climate-controlled vaults, rest thousands of tiny seeds, each one carrying the possibility of another harvest, another forest, another orchard, another beginning. They are small enough to rest in the palm of your hand, yet together they carry the biodiversity of an entire planet. They are reminders that humanity did not leave Earth behind. It carried Earth's future with it. As Genesis continues its silent journey between the stars, the gardens continue to grow. Leaves unfold beneath artificial sunlight. Roots reach into flowing water. New seeds quietly replace the old, life renewing itself exactly as it has for billions of years. Only now, it does so aboard a ship crossing the vast darkness between suns. Perhaps that is the most extraordinary part of all. The greatest achievement of Genesis was never its engines, or its reactors, or the immense distance it would one day travel. It was proving that humanity could bring the most important part of Earth wherever it chose to go. Not its mountains, not its oceans, but its living systems, its resilience, its endless ability to begin again. And as you leave the gardens behind, the quiet sound of flowing water slowly fades into the familiar hum of the ship, a gentle reminder that somewhere just beyond these walls, a small piece of Earth is still growing, and with it, so is the future of humanity. Chapter 7, Tomorrow's Harvest. At the beginning of our journey through these gardens, we asked a simple question. How can humanity survive forever without ever returning to Earth? The answer was never hidden inside a single machine or a single invention. It was found in the quiet partnership between nature and human ingenuity. The people aboard Genesis do not simply consume resources. They renew them. The water is used, recovered, and used again. The air is continually refreshed. The seeds produce plants. The plants produce food. And in time, new seeds, each cycle preparing the next. It is a rhythm as old as life itself. For countless generations, that rhythm unfolded beneath open skies. Now, it continues within the protective walls of a ship crossing the darkness between the stars. Perhaps that is what makes Genesis so remarkable. It is not trying to replace Earth. It is preserving the systems that made Earth a home. Every carefully stored seed carries more than the promise of another meal. It carries possibility, a field that has not yet been planted, an orchard that has not yet taken root, a forest that may one day grow beneath an unfamiliar sky. Somewhere in the distant future, when Genesis finally reaches its destination, those tiny seeds may become the first gardens of another world. Children who have never stood beneath Earth's blue sky may one day gather fruit whose ancestors once grew there. The connection will be invisible, but unbroken, a quiet thread stretching across generations, across unimaginable distances from one world to another. As you pause for one final look, the gardens seem almost unchanged. Water continues its endless journey through narrow channels. Leaves gently turn toward their artificial sun. Tiny roots quietly draw the nutrients they need. Nothing hurries. Nothing struggles. Everything moves with calm purpose. Beyond the hull of Genesis lies a universe of extraordinary scale. Cold, silent, almost empty. Yet here, within these walls, life continues exactly as it always has. Growing, adapting, beginning again. Perhaps that has always been humanity's greatest strength. Not simply the ability to travel farther than ever before, but the wisdom to carry with us the things that matter most. Not only our knowledge, not only our technology, but the living world that first taught us how to survive. And as the gardens slowly disappear behind you, replaced once again by the quiet corridors of Genesis, one thought lingers. The future of humanity will never be measured only by the distance we travel. It will be measured by the life we are able to nurture along the way. The ship continues onward. The stars drift silently past, and somewhere deep within Genesis, tomorrow's harvest is already beginning.